Hello, and welcome to another episode of Jorgy's Stripping the Dipping podcast. We are that motorsport podcast that brings voices to you from throughout the paddock and beyond. Champions, legends, new starters, talent that's up and coming, engineers and media, and so on. Today, I have a guy that's living his dream. In fact, he's probably living most of our dreams. He was a sim racing engineer. He's now also a fully fledged racing engineer. He is the director of his own company, A Cup of Racing, none other than Davide Russis. How are you doing, Davide, how's it going?
All good, all good. Thank you, and always nice to be back again. It's the third time. So here we are.
Yeah,
How are you?
I'm very good. You're joining an illustrious group, a small group of people that I think will be on the podcast 3 times. So thank you. We're really blessed to have you back with us.
Yes, like VIP party or stuff like that organized. I
Absolutely.
would like to.
You need to hire a PA that will stop Jorgy's emails from reaching you because we're very
we
persistent. We'll
went
never let you
we
go.
went through Texas directly. It's not email anymore. So,
Exactly right. That's the connection. No, it's great to have you here. And in preparation for this episode, and I do encourage listeners, do go and check out the last couple of episodes, particularly the last one, because at the end of the last episode, Davide said, who knows what's going to happen in 2023? Maybe GT3 World Challenge. Who knows? I know, but ... Who knows? I'm quoting you. You left us on a cliffhanger in one of our final episodes of 2022. So why don't we kick off there? Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about what you do and what does 2023 hold for you?
yeah, of course. Now I can. So basically, it was GT3 World Challenge Europe Endurance Cup, but that's one of the news. To be honest, it will be with an Aston Martin team, and I'm finalizing stuff now. So I will have a couple of tests, and I will get on with Monza directly. Then there are opportunities for a race in 24-hour series, but it's to be confirmed. Could have been 24-hour Barcelona at the end of the year. But as a main important stuff, I will do British GT this year with an English team, and this is the year where British GT has been the most competitive ever. So I'm very excited about that with a GT3 McLaren, and I will have also the management of the engineering department of the British GT and GT Cup cars. So that's the new.
Wow. I mean, so we were just in the virtual green room, and I came in, Jorgy and Davide were talking about how busy Davide is, and now I understand why. That's a lot. That's and
That's a
you're.
lot, and
Why don't we pick
and
through
it's been in
those?
2 weeks in December, all this. So
Well, congratulations, first of all.
thank you.
It's always great to see people growing and succeeding. It's really fantastic. So many different cars there. I mean, first of all, how do you engineer across a variety of different marques, different series? How do you manage that? Do you have different compartments in your brain, or are there lots of similarities?
Well, it's still a GT car, so as soon as you are in the same class, there are of course differences between brands and between GT4, GT3, GTE, but it's a GT car, as I said, so you can actually expect a similar behavior overall. Compartments in my end helps because you work with McLaren, these are the weaknesses, these are the strengths. So you know what to do. Then you switch for an Aston Martin. It's a front engine car, so it's completely different balance, different concept, a different way to use tires. Sometimes different tire brands as well, because you can do Michelin, you can do Pirelli, and who everybody knows the difference. I think between different brands is everything about the tires at the end. And then you maybe get a test in GT4 that is crazy simpler than the other two, but still a GT car. So you have less to do in that case, but you can stick with your procedures, just forgetting that you don't have maybe too many TC and ABS settings to think about it. Regulation with the cars are much easier and less, so it's more driving coaching and driver focus in that case. But yeah, definitely in my position, what I help me is dividing everything in compartments, even personal life sometimes, because if you are busy and you have 11 months out of 12 with races and tests, if you want to have a life out of that, you need to divide things. Otherwise, it's just impossible to manage everything properly.
Well, I mean, good luck, and maybe you need to write a book or something about how to be 200% efficient and productive, and I definitely read it.
Maybe in the future if we got time.
Yeah, you need 13 months to
yeah,
write
exactly.
books.
Yeah, it would be good. 14, one for holiday. Otherwise,
yeah. Well, do you know what? Actually, why don't we start there? Like the mental health side. Like, you seem like a guy that's happy, right? But you're leading a busy life, and maybe on the surface, we're all projecting how happy we are. But how do you keep your energy levels up in spite of this schedule?
yeah, I mean, as I said a couple of podcasts ago, this is the job I always wanted to do. So for me, it's not a job. I love it simply, and that's helped a lot in terms of mental health and keep the stress down. I'm not saying it's not easy, or that basically is everything fine every day, every time. We are always happy. It's not like that. It's any other job, any other people. But doing a job you love, as you know, is a start. And then if you are able to have a mental strength and manage your things between jobs, personal life, holidays, and whatever it is, family, in a proper way, like for example, it helping me a lot, dividing everything in compartments. So when I'm home, I don't have to work. I'm not working. It's just home time. So I spend with my girlfriend, I spend with my family, and that's it. With my cat, and that's it. When I'm working, I'm working. So my phone is basically 90% off. I don't answer text until the night. It's just about full focus on the car, full focus on the race, and putting everything together. But then, as I said, you come back home and you do the same. So it's not being difficult, to be honest, but you need to be very organized, a good strength in your head, and divide everything from my side. It's working for me at least. Then every people is different.
Yeah, well, it's definitely working, at least from my perspective. Why don't we? And it's great that you love your job, and I hope listening at home, I hope you're in a similar position or have a path to getting to that position where you love Mondays or Sundays, depending on what your profession is. So tell us a bit about the British GT3 series. So I am definitely the weaker of the two when it comes to GT racing compared to our co-host Dens, who unfortunately isn't here today. But a quick Google suggests that the McLaren car is the 720S. Is that right? And what does that car look and feel like? Describe that vividly to our listeners.
That's correct. British GT, as I said, this year is the most competitive year since it exists. We have a lot of drivers, a lot of good teams coming to do the race. It's my full season, my first full season, because I did some races, like extra races, but this year is full committed for that. So that's why I'm excited, because it's a national championship, to be honest. But it is the oldest of SRO, so it's the first one that actually SRO managed to build up. So there is a kind of a story. Winning the British GT is like winning a European Championship for the level, for the competition, for the story, for everything. The McLaren is a good car, to be honest. It's not a very difficult car to run. That's a point in terms of getting no stress or less stress. And it's a very particular schedule, because a British GT weekend is not the same every time. You can get races where you have 1 hour race, 2 drivers, and 2 races per weekend. And then you got a 3 hour race like the Portimao one of this year or the Silverstone 500. That is historical. And then you got a normal race of British GT weekend. It is just 2 hours. So it's a good start for drivers that want to go higher level. At the same time, you got the competition you can expect from a higher level sometime. And you can practice both sprint races and kind of endurance, because you start to do 3 hour races. I know it's not exactly the same like doing ELMS, for example, or WEC, because you got as a minimum 4 hour races for ELMS and 6 hour races for WEC. But it's a start, and it's still a national level, to be honest. So at the end of the story, you got a very good competition, but you're still doing a national championship, so you can have young drivers that want to develop themselves and go in other places, you know.
Fantastic. And you mentioned drivers. You did just talk about driver coaching when you were talking about one of the tasks that you have to do. I'm really intrigued by that. And we've had other guests on in similar positions. We had one of the engineers from in fact, lead engineer from Brian Herter Autosport, saying driver coaching was one of the most fundamental parts of his job. What does that look like? What do you think is success when it comes to driver coaching?
Yeah, the best thing is having a pro driver helping you, because you can see things from an engineering perspective, but a pro driver is in the car, is experienced in driving the car, and sometimes is a factory driver of that brand as well, so know the car much better than an engineer in terms of driving. So the combination between a race engineer and a driver coach together is helpful first. Then it's about run plans, and I'm not telling too much about this because it's kind of secret. But you need to sort out run plans that put the AM in a position where it has something to analyze with the pro that is useful. Okay, I don't know if it's clear what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, we get it. Yeah. So
yeah,
go on. So they have to have a clear plan of how they're going to use the session.
Yes, exactly. And you need to use the time you've got with both drivers in a proper way in order to get the information, the data from the car, and actually have a session of driver analysis for both of them. Sometimes there is something also the pro can learn from maybe the sister car with another pro that is slightly faster, or do the same lap times, same performance, but get into certain corners differently, so you can extract performance between two pro as well, and that's driver coaching. So it's about the use of inputs like steering wheel, braking, throttle, and speed carry into a corner in a certain way for that particular corner or circuit.
Okay, so I mean that's really fascinating to me, because I think in my personal life, or my professional life, I should say, a lot of my job is about leading and managing people. And when I watch sport, it's easy to forget, oh yeah, actually it's a team, and you have certain people that have to perform in a certain way, and we all have to work together, in sync for us to succeed.
Yeah.
So let's imagine. So we're going to play a little bit of a game here, and let's see how much you want to celebrate your career. You might end up, in Formula One. Who knows? Let's say we pick a few drivers from Formula One, and what driver coaching might you give them? And I know that we're talking in abstract here, we're not talking in a specific session, but let's have a go. So what about a rookie entering the series? So Oscar Piastri, let's take him for example. He's running the not the Alpine, the McLaren. He left Alpine. He has had a year out from competitive racing, but a huge pedigree. What's the sort of thing in that situation where you've got someone joining a series for the first time, but clearly a lot of expectation, pressure on their shoulders? What sort of thing would you be saying to an Oscar Piastri come this season?
Well, first, you need to have an experienced driver beside you, and Norris in the McLaren I think is good, but he's not at that level of experience yet. So for sure it will be difficult for him to have kind of reference, even if his Norris is very good and I like him a lot. In terms of coaching, Formula One is different, because they should be already at a certain level. So of course they can learn how to drive a car around a circuit or a corner in a better way, because you can always improve. Even Hamilton can improve, but it's more based on management of the car during a race. What I mean, have you ever seen a steering wheel for a Formula One? Like how many buttons they've got? Okay, yeah, exactly. They need to know exactly what to do in every button, and what button touch if an engineer asking for certain maps or for specifications, certain settings. So at the beginning, the first year, it's more, warm up year in terms of that's a Formula One. It's much more complicated. I can drive it because I've got talent. I'm Oscar Piastri, but it's not about that only. It's much more than that. You need to work with much more people around the car than you used to. Because, for example, for a car, a trackside team, Formula One can have 100 people. When you come from Formula 2, you get 10 people. So it's a different approach. It's not about driving and that's it, I think. It's more about understanding and learn very quickly, because you won't have 5 years to learn this. You have one. About how a Formula One driver needs to behave and needs to drive and needs to be part of the team. Is much more a teamwork than what it was maybe in Formula 2. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
my suggestion for him will be more based on what Norris is doing, for sure, but not just about driving, about everything.
And I know you talked about an experienced driver. While he's not his teammate, Mark Webber, I think, is part of the management of Oscar Piastri and does accompany him to the races. So there's something there about that experience. Absolutely.
Yeah, it may be kind of a driver coach in that sense. He's much more experienced in that sense.
Exactly. So let me just pick one more example, and I'm going to give a disclaimer now that clearly I don't know Max Verstappen very well, but I'm going to take the media perception based on his race audio or race radio. So let's think we've got a driver that is now double reigning world champion in a car that's pretty strong. But actually, when things go wrong, he can tend to fly off the handle, as we'd say in England. He can tend to lose his cool every now and then. So imagine you're coaching a driver. It could be in any series, or it could just be Max. When you obviously want him to win the race, the pressure's on, but equally, you know that you have to tread carefully in the way that you communicate news during the race. How do you approach that as an engineer?
Yeah, I think as an engineer, he is a difficult driver. He's fast, he's definitely fast, and now every fan of Verstappen will hate me, but I don't think he's the best in the grid at the moment at all. I think he will never be, because he's lacking the part of being a serious driver for me. He is very fast, he's very committed, he has for sure talent, but the way he manages the situations is one of the worst I ever seen, to be honest. Because sometimes it looks like there is no respect in what he's doing. He's the best, he needs to be the best in every single minute and competition. And I get that because it's a very high level profile championship in motorsport. And so it's all about winning. And I get that. I agree with him in that. But you need to keep in mind there are people behind you that actually are there working 12, 15, 20 hours for you and deserve a bit more of respect in certain situations if something goes wrong, because they're still human and the variables in motorsport are so many that you can't really predict everything. So, I mean, it happens. Everybody makes mistakes. He makes mistakes as well, but the way he looks, he can and the other can't. You know what I mean? It's just about the way he manage other people beside him or behind him is not right from my side point of view. And I don't know him, I don't know his team, so maybe I could be completely wrong. But for what he showed in the last 7 years, to be honest, it's just a very fast driver that is just a driver, no more than that. He's not part of a team, he's not a real team member. And that's hurtful when you are double world champion, because you should learn that you are double world champion because you are good, you have the car, but you also have a very good amount of people, skilled people that helped you in everything. So it should be a bit more worth, in that sense.
Wow.
If I had a driver like that, managing a driver like that is difficult, because when something is going wrong, he will be angry at you because you are the first point of contact, and you can't actually say anything to him live. But for sure, over season, I would find a way to have a relationship with him at least and try to calm it down in certain situation, because it needs to be part of a team from my side.
Absolutely. Well, look, no one could accuse you of shying away from your opinion. So appreciate that. And, I think I can see where you're coming at. The challenge I see in motorsport in general is that the way to get into motorsport as a driver is often very individual. That's my perception. So, as a child, if you're karting or on a dirt track, you need to just beat everyone. But then at the very highest level, we saw with Schumacher, we see with Vettel and Hamilton, you need to be able to lead a team as well. And so those kind of individual versus team dynamics don't always work well for everyone. But that's a really interesting perception.
Yeah, if you want to be a champion at least, otherwise you are a good driver.
Yeah.
But it's not the same. You can win 11 championships and still not be a champion for me if you don't do everything right.
Yeah, well, and maybe if we had Drive to Survive going back through the years, we would see why certain drivers didn't quite fulfill their potential. Who knows? You can't accuse Verstappen of not fulfilling his potential in the sense that, at least on paper, he has 2 world championships, and he must be the favourite for this season as well. So, he'll very quickly be up there with the 3-time champions, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's probable. I mean, the Red Bull looks very fast as well. I don't think so far we actually saw the proper Red Bull. They don't need at the moment to show all the potential they've got, I think. So that's the thing. It would be easy for him if nothing happened to win another one, for sure.
Well, so while we're on the subject, because I've sneakily switched to Formula One, and we'll go back to GT and we'll in a bit, but you obviously have a history with Williams, being an engineer in their esports division. You're a busy guy. I don't know if I heard you say that in your introduction. Is that something that is on the back burner this season, or will you still be involved?
Yeah, still for the year, yes. Then we need to discuss for 2024, but for the year is still on.
Fantastic.
Same position, nothing changed.
And what does that involve? What races will you be doing, or what series will you be doing with them?
At the moment, I'm supporting the 24-hour series on iRacing that is just on today for the 12-hour Barcelona. Barcelona, yeah, sorry. That's the last of the championship. We are P1, so this is double point. I'm not doing the in-race support since I'm here, to be honest. But just because it was too much as well to get there. I've got other engineers there, and I'm always direct line with them. So if everything needs to be done, or they have question strategy change and they are a bit confused about that, I'm always supervising everything in that sense, but I'm not in the race straight away this time. As I said, I can't do everything. It's just too much.
No.
We'll see how it's going. And then I was the engineer for the VCO eSport World Championship. It just finished last week. So we'll finish P4 overall with a touring car. That was very more about, again, driver coaching and managing the situation, because it was very short racing a touring car, and there was R Factor 2, the simulator, fixed the setup. So it's just important for the team, but not a big race. And then coming on in the next months, we need to discuss what are the championship I'm following, because normally I'm doing iRacing special events and big championship like it was Le Mans Virtual Series. So I think it will be more about special events for the rest of the year, and then Le Mans Virtual Series again end of the year, and we'll see in 2024 what's going on then.
Well, I mean, as we've established, you're a busy guy, and you're keeping that Williams relationship going, at least in this year. Let's give AMG Dens some coaching, right? Because he and Mike Fowler. Whoa! I mean, I couldn't possibly agree or disagree with you there, but they raced in Daytona. They did Bathurst. Him and Mike Fowler, his colleague. We spoke to Kyle Compton, who I was mentioning before, who's the lead engineer at Brian Herter Autosport in one of the US series, the Michelin Pilot Challenge. And he said that in those endurance races, often what they try to do is survive the first 18 hours. And then you're in the race. Is that something that kind of resonates with you?
Yeah, I mean, it's always 50-50, you know. I'm fair enough sometimes, because you need to survive first, because finishing a 24-hour race, for example, it's already an achievement, because you need to have a very reliable car, no crash into any other. If you crash with someone else, have the possibility to repair the crash and go back. So finishing an endurance race, a long endurance race, is always an achievement. Of course, everybody wants to finish first, the endurance race as well. So I agree with surviving at the beginning, because it's such a long race that if you don't survive at the beginning, when there is a bit of traffic, a lot of fastest car maybe overlapping you, or you overlap slowest car, depending from the category you are in, definitely you need to survive, because it's an easy crash, otherwise you finish there. But if you want to win, you need to do a bit more. You need to have a bit of luck, first of all, and have a very good strategy to get out from a bad position if you started at the back, or to keep your position if you start in the front, you know. So it's not easy. It's not just about surviving for me. It starts with surviving, but if you want more, you need to have everything on the right places in the right moment. In 24-hour races, it's a lot. It can't happen sometimes, simply.
No, and that definitely resonates. Surviving is the minimum, and then you need to push on from there. The thing that I watch this sometimes. I watch Denz and Mike going around. The thing that strikes me is the amount of concentration that you need to have. So they've had a few unfortunate incidents, often with drivers that are a lap down or several laps behind or in a different class. How, particularly in that sort of GT space where you've got the LMPs running around perhaps as well in those endurance scenarios, what advice do you have when you're managing cars at different speeds or in a race environment with cars of different speeds?
Yeah, that's actually a good question, because sometimes in sim racing, the fastest car needs to be aware of the slowest. And this is not something that happens in real world. It's actually the opposite. Because if you are the slowest, you are the one to be careful of who is faster. And for me, it just makes sense. So I don't understand why in sim racing is different, to be honest. But yeah, the thing is, if you are in a GT car, you overlap from an LMP2, for example, you want to be as much as possible easy to understand from the other car. So you don't go changing trajectory immediately. You do a line that is comfortable for them to overlap you in safe without be unpredictable. Because if you want to make space and you are unpredictable, so you change line immediately, for example, you change direction immediately, the driver in LMP2 is coming much faster than you, he couldn't have the time to understand you are moving and actually try to go where you are going. So you crash. So the idea is be predictable, first of all, and be aware that if there is an LMP2 coming, as soon as you see his lights, for example, if it's night, in your mirrors, it will be very quick when they come here. You don't have too much time to think about, okay, he's coming, maybe next corner I'll do this, because it will be already there. They are very fast compared with a GTV. So it's about mental set and be predictable.
Okay, well, I think, I don't know if you can compare the two, because you've engineered for a sim world and the kind of real world. Do you think that in sim racing the behavior is just naturally worse because the cost of collisions, the cost of bad behavior is lower?
Yeah, can be that. Can be that. But can be also the drivers that normally drive in sim racing are not experienced. So a lot of team, a lot of drivers do stuff they think they are right, but not because they're stupid, just because they don't know. They're not. It's not their job. And maybe you do something you think is 100% right, and it's the worst way to do that particular thing. So, I mean, it's the level of experience the drivers have got in sim races is getting better and better, but it's not real motorsport anyway, in that sense. It's getting better only. So, of course, it's different. There is no damage, no cost. Sometimes you don't retire the car, but it's also true that you can retire the car. Just imagine you do 12-hour Sebring, for example. You are leading your class until the end of 11th hour, and then some LMP2 comes and crash into it because you don't give space or you are unpredictable, and maybe you can't repair the car because it's too damaged and it's 6 seconds slower per lap, because it happens in sim racing sometimes. You just retire the car, you are winning after 11 hours, so the effort you're putting into it is a lot, and you vanify everything for an hour. So yeah, you can compare it. The difference is experience for sure. Damage cost is much less, but it costs 8 hours of preparation and 12 hours of racing, maybe leading. For what? Just for being unpredictable, maybe. So
Well,
it's not completely different from my opinion. It's 90% different, let's say.
Okay, the fundamentals are the same, right?
Yes, it's common sense, to be honest. You don't want to crash. Either it's virtual or real. You want to win. So
yeah. Well, look, we're going to clip this part of the podcast and send it directly to Denz and Mike ahead of their next race. They just released, I think, a livery, a stripping and dipping livery for their upcoming Le Mans challenge. I think they're racing a Lamborghini. So, guys, please do check out Denz's channel. He did a livery reveal. It looks fantastic. Do give him all the support in the world. On the subject of esports, and I appreciate you may not be able to say very much. The Williams team did come in for some criticism in Daytona about a month or so ago, to do with qualifying, to do with, I think, the second car when it went a lap down. Do you think that as esports becomes even higher profile, that the level of competition and competitiveness will go up? Do you think, like, what do you put that sort of controversy around? Was it teams that lost having sour grapes, or how did that feel to you? How involved were you?
Yeah, I can't say too much, as you imagined.
Yeah.
The only thing I can say about this is they were people that probably do the same if they were in our position, and they just didn't. And the morning after, everybody has like a consciousness about sporting regulation and stuff. So I'm not saying we were right to do it, but if rules doesn't have a way to punish us, it means it's allowed, and that's not different from real motorsport. I mean, we can have a list of example of gray area regulation that people used. I get is maybe not the best sport behavior, but I don't see a real problem in that, to be honest. As I didn't see a problem in having the double-decker diffuser with the Brown in 2009. They were clever to use the gray area. It wasn't sportive. It was bad Formula One, but they won a championship, and it's fair enough. That's the only thing I can say to you about this. No more than that.
I appreciate that. Good. And yeah, we don't want you to lose your job. Then we would just be interviewing a guy. You'll be less busy. Maybe you can come on more. But no. There's a kind of the famous quote from Ayrton Senna about if you no longer go for a gap, are you a racing driver? And maybe he said that in the context of being like more naughty than you're describing. But yeah, certainly if there's a grey area, motorsport has historically driven innovation through those grey areas, sporting and technical. So yeah, well, thanks for answering the question. At least I appreciate it.
Let's go after. I mean, I want to have everybody happy.
Yeah. No, good. I appreciate it. Good. So let's talk about another compartment in your brain, which is the GT3 World Challenge. And you mentioned that you are with the Aston Martin team this year.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about that series and then a little bit about the car? Like, what is the challenge facing you?
Well, the car, I know the car very well because it's basically, I mean, I used the Aston GTE last year in ELMS and WEC. I did Asia Le Mans last year with the GT3. It will be exactly the same car, it's just a different team. And car is fast. If you get it right, it's a very good car. And it's not easy as the McLaren to put it together. It's a bit difficult in a certain way, but as soon as you got experience as with any other car, you know weaknesses, you know strengths, and you can manage it very quickly if you have issue. It's just a bit more complicated, but it's a racing car, so it doesn't mean to be easy, to be honest. Everybody can drive that, of course, but you need to how to drive it if you want to go fast. And that's for everything at the end. In terms of the championship, it's my first year doing this championship. I wanted to do GT World Challenge since I started with the GT cars, to be honest. Even before I wanted to do WEC and ELMS, and I never had the chance to do it. So having the chance to do the Endurance Cup is exciting for me. And there are a couple of things that are still not completely confirmed. Hopefully next week or soon it will be. But it's clearly an endurance championship. The level is very high. You've got names like Valentino Rossi, for example. I'm super excited to be doing the same paddock with him, to be honest. We may speak Italian together sometimes, who knows? And for the rest, I want to do 24-hour Spa. I think is the best and the most famous GT3 races. So after I've done Le Mans last year, it's good to have an opportunity to do a 24-hour Spa as well. And I'm looking forward to the 1,000 kilometers of Paul Ricard, because Paul Ricard is not my favorite track. It's my favorite place for box garages. That's perfect, because it's the only place in Europe, at least, that you get private office closed from the car up, like alpha floor up from the cars. So the engineering department is always separated from the car. You don't smell petrol all the time. It's very good in that sense. So it's my favorite place as a building. It's not my favorite track in the world, but the competition is good, and the 1,000 kilometers per Ricard is always a very competitive race. It could be a kind of preparation of Spa as well. Happy to go race in Italy for Monza. Happy about that. It's difficult series. It's 40 cars in the grid. It's completely different than what I've done so far, to be honest, and I look forward to it.
It sounds like you're extremely enthusiastic, and you'll be ticking off lots of I don't know, dreams or bucket list races. You talked about something that fascinated me, that the boxes or the sort of offices and spaces for engineers differ between the tracks, and you mentioned Paul Ricard being your favorite. Which track is your least favorite, without necessarily offending any circuit owners?
Strangely Spa, because I love the circuit. I think it's one of the best circuit in Europe for the level of competition. It's so unpredictable. Weather is bad and can be bad an hour and very cool the other hour, and you need to change everything accordingly. You can have a 6-hour race with 12 red flags, 12 safety cars. I'm just saying numbers. So in terms of racetrack, Spa at all in the world is my circuit, but the box are pretty bad. There's old, short, small. You can't really fit everything, so you don't have the space you normally work with. But if I have to say something, it's not different in any other UK racetrack apart from Silverstone, because they're old. They have no space at all in the track and outside the track. So that's the thing. Spa is the worst for me in terms of box.
Fair enough. And I mean, maybe, not to get too mathematical about this, the classic circuits probably don't have to work as hard to get the girls, in the sense that
no, exactly.
The series is never going to say, no, sorry, Spa, your boxes are too small, so we will not be.
We are not coming. Yeah, it's not going to happen. I mean, Spa is one of the circuits when you pay as an organizer to go there. It's not the circuit paying you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So I mean, it's fair enough they want to be like this, and it's part of the experience. To be honest, I don't like it because you are working, so you want to be as much as comfortable as possible, but it's part of the experience. You are going on an historic racetrack. It won't be good to have the best box in the world, super technologic with 100-meter square space and stuff like that. It won't be different. It won't be Spa anymore.
Yeah, well, we don't want them to cut down the trees, so we will let them, and yeah, the infield is hilly, having been there a couple of times. So yeah, they have a logistical challenge, but over time, I'm sure it will improve.
It's the best track in the world for me. I mean, no offense for all the other circuits, but I love it. I've got a keychain in my car keys. I've got carbon fiber shape Spa on the wall in my office. So it's pretty clear I like Spa.
Well, I was going to ask you about the experience of being at a track during an endurance race, but before we do that, and this might be a very niche question, so apologies to if you're at home and you're like, what the hell is this about? So I started watching motorsport, mainly Formula One, but also IndyCar in the 90s. And Spa had a different bus stop chicane. I think it's changed a few times. If you remember those, you probably only worked on the latest version, but do you have any sense of whether that is the best, that's the optimum bus stop? That's such a niche question, but I'm sure you'll get it. What do you think?
It's difficult to answer because I never saw the old version live.
Okay.
I had in my mind how it was. I know that years and years ago, it was an actual bus stop. There was the place when the bus was stopping there. So that's the name of the chicane. But to be honest, I don't have an answer for this.
Okay. Next time, episode 4.
Next time, I'll study.
please, yeah, unnecessary study in your 14-month year, exactly.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So how about we reverse back, and so you're going to be doing sort of 24-hour races, 12-hour races, 6-hour races. In those longer endurance races, as the engineer, particularly if you're in the lead, do you sleep, or are you just trying to stay awake for the whole time? How does it work?
Nope. You are the only one don't sleep at all. If you are the race engineer, you stay awake 40 hours to do a 24-hour race.
Oh God!
Straight.
40 hours.
It's fine to be honest, because you've got so much to do and so much adrenaline in your core, in your body. That's okay. Problem is when you finish your 40th hour and you try to sit down somewhere comfortable, just dead for 24 hours straight again. And then when the adrenaline effect is finished,
and then you go to sleep. Although you probably got to travel. Now you're in the real world.
It depends. It depends.
Yeah.
Normally, it depends from the team. If it's a good team, you got a day off and then you travel. If it's a team that wants maybe save some money or have no budget, because can happen also as well, you may fly the morning after, and that's not the idea sometimes, but you do it. It's not your choice, so it's fine.
I'm sensing a strong hint here, Davide, that those teams that want your services should pay for that extra night in a hotel.
No, I'm fine with everything, to be honest. I'm getting used to it. But yeah, it's better. It's better. Of course, if someone pay you a night more and give you a nice hotel and a nice flight to come back, of course I can't say no.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. Good. Yeah. Please distance yourself from my comments. They were my opinion. Okay. So no, you don't sleep. How about this then? So we heard I mentioned this Kyle Compton sort of suggestion that like the last 6 hours is where the race really comes together. So if you've been awake for 30 hours, what do you put in place to avoid having to use or rely solely on your judgment in those last few hours when you've not been asleep for a few sunrises? How do you manage that as an engineer?
I mean, that's different from person and person because everybody works in a different way. For me, it's not the worst part of the race, to be honest. For me, the worst part is like 2 a.m. in the morning, where you actually used to sleep, but then you can't, so you go on, and when you arrive at the last 6 hours, it's fine. You're still awake. You've got past the worst period in the night. For me, it's helping a lot. Being focused on the data station, focus on the strategy, speak with the drivers, not too much, but sometimes to keep both of us awake, and eating good food and proper food, to be honest, in the proper moment during the night. So you want something that keep you awake, so proteins, stuff that is filling you with energy without getting you sleepy, so you don't eat a pasta 1 a.m. in the morning because you will go straight to bed after. So try to do kind of stuff like that. Coffee, not too much coffee because you get nervous, and if you get nervous then you're stressed, and if you're stressed you can make mistakes. It's a balance between everything, but when you get into the last 6 hours, for me the worst is done already, so I'm much more focused than during the night, at the beginning of the night, midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., something like that.
That makes sense. Yeah, those last 6 hours is when the race, it becomes more demanding, more interesting, and your body is naturally waking up in your circadian rhythms anyway. That's really interesting. So let's play an impromptu game then, which is Davide's kitchen. Yeah. How do you say kitchen in Italian? Is it cucina or something? Cucina. Cucina, right? The cucina di Davide. Right. We're gonna. So let's go through these 40 hours. Right. I'm fascinated by this. So coffee, but not too much coffee. Right. So my personal strategy is I can't have coffee after a certain time in the afternoon, or I will struggle to sleep. So what is too much coffee, or what's on the limit of coffee here for you?
Yeah, let's say that a proper coffee is a single shot of espresso. All the rest is try to imitate.
Proper coffee, exactly.
It depends. There is no schedule for that, to be honest. You get to a certain point, you need one. You think about when I had the last one. And my idea, if it's been like 4 hours ago, I'll get another one. If it's been an hour and a half, 2 hours, I try to resist, and maybe I drink water or something else. Try to have something in the data station I can use with my hands, like anti-stress or something, just to keep awake, and stuff like that in the meantime. And then when you get other 4 hours, you get another coffee. Okay, it's not precise. It depends. You are days you are more tired because maybe you had a very difficult week with the car and you always went to bed late, so you are tired more than when everything is smooth and you're always fine. Easy finish, early finish, and then you go to bed. Try to sleep as much as possible before the race. And then that's it. Sometimes help me at least. Half an hour when the car is in the grid, for example, you may have an hour or an hour and a half of nothing because it's grid walk, is everything. What helps me when I got that chance is going to the track, find a quiet place, and have half an hour sleep. That's help a lot to me. to start properly the race and go on with that one. But sometimes you can't do it. Depends what happens.
No, that makes sense. Okay, so we've got the drinks confirmed, right? Coffee, but not too much coffee.
Coffee,
Proper
but not
coffee.
too much coffee.
Yeah, exactly.
Possibly water. Italian coffee.
Italian. Oh well, I think we have Lavazza at home, so I'm just repping that Italian coffee. Absolutely.
Very good.
So Valtteri Bottas is known for his porridge for breakfast. What is a solid breakfast when you know you're not going to go back to sleep for 40 hours? What is it that Davide Russis is having for breakfast?
Lately, an English breakfast.
Nice.
But lately, because I didn't like it before. When I went to the UK, I was the only person in the UK not eating English breakfast, probably. But I didn't like it. Then I tried once, and I actually said, okay, yeah, it's not so bad. I can have it. And then sometimes when you need to be awake, a good breakfast with full of protein, eggs, and stuff like that, it's helping. But two things can't miss in my breakfast. It doesn't matter if it's for racing or for anything. It's an orange juice and cappuccino. Or single shot of espresso, depends on
nice.
That's compulsory.
Okay, and I'm told that Italians are quite strict. Maybe this is a stereotype about not having cappuccino after a certain time. It's like that is
after 10 a.m. It's not time for cappuccino. I mean,
unacceptable.
It's between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. Afterwards, it's not breakfast anymore, so no cappuccino.
No, exactly. And so for our American listeners, you may have heard of an English breakfast, but just to confirm, it's very meat heavy compared to what I know a lot of. I lived in Brazil for a couple of years, and they were just shocked. Why would you eat sausages or bacon, in the morning?
In the morning. It was eggs. The same question I've got when I moved here, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's a logical question. And you have eggs, you have beans. I personally don't like baked beans, but lots of people do. And then it gets more peculiar as you get more English. So you can have something called blood pudding, which is like a black sort of sausage that I won't even describe because it makes me feel a bit ugh. But you can have mushrooms, which I like. It goes on and on. But no, I'm glad you're a fan of the English breakfast. Okay, so then you said, look, it's 2 a.m. crucial moment. Do not have your pasta. Don't have your carbs. So what is that source of protein that's getting you through that quiet night?
It's mainly snacks, sweet snacks that helps, or kind of energy. Protein bars, cereal, something like that. It's not a proper meal, but every 1 or 2 hours you want a snack. About that.
See, everything you have to leave no stone unturned to be successful. You've got to get the diet right. Very good. I endorse.
Yeah, I'm still getting fat anyway, so there is no point in.
Well, I'm sure that next time you're on, you'll have found a new way to exercise in between your many jobs. It's another compartment in your brain.
To be honest, I've just bought a mountain bike, so maybe maybe we can get some weight out of my body.
You can cycle from Spa to Nürburgring or something. That would be
that would be long. Probably be dead by the time, but anyway.
Well, no, not if you've had your cappuccino and your English breakfast. Then you'll be.
It's fair enough.
Fair enough. Okay, brilliant. So, thank you for giving us that behind-the-scenes scoop on what it's like in the box for a long endurance race, particularly in Spa. I had a vivid image in my head. So thank you for that. So let's turn our attention a little bit towards Formula One. So this episode, you'll be listening to this, I think, on the Saturday after the first race. So what a fantastic race! What a surprising result, hey? We'll see what happens. So what we've seen so far, we're recording this on Saturday lunchtime of Bahrain. So we've seen practices 1 and 2. I think practice 3 is probably going on as we speak. I don't know how much time you've had to follow Formula One, given how many jobs you've got. But any observations about the 2023 season?
Yeah, I didn't have too much time because I was testing in Barcelona when they actually started to do testing and winter testing and everything. I look at the cars when they present the liveries, and I'm saying present the liveries because I'm pretty sure half of the team didn't actually present the car. And that's fair enough because you don't want to show things. I think some of the teams had different solution, interesting solution. Some ducts on the side parts of the Ferrari looks interesting for aero, but it could be, Ferrari is a bit under the lights in this moment under the spotlights. Everybody's gonna look what they do because they should do much better than what actually doing at the moment. So it can be a good risk because if they make it right, it could be a solution that maybe improve, I don't know, traction or whatever they need. But it could be also a risk doing, we need to do something different, we need to try, and then go the worst car ever. We'll see about that. For the rest, I think Mercedes got a good choice to remove the idea of not having or almost not having side pods. It's much better now. I think Red Bull it's the car to actually beat, and they didn't modify too much from last year, but why they should? To be honest, it was already fast and very performing like that. So they of course will improve something throughout the season, and I think they are the most favorite for the final victory. But Formula One is a very long championship. You need to put in practice a lot of development, race by race. When you go Barcelona, you normally have a kit ready for that. Then you go Monza, Spa, a very low downforce, and we know Red Bull normally run a car a bit more downforce with the others because they can, to be honest. So why not? They have got an efficiency from the underfloor that is great compared with other cars. So it's not just about having the car ready and very good at the beginning of the season. It's just about working in the same way towards results race by race, because it's 23 races just because they canceled China. Otherwise, it would have been 24, and that's crazy for a season of motorsport. So you can't really see now what's going on. I think Mercedes is not in a bad position. I think Red Bull is the car to be beaten. And I think Ferrari can have chances. Of course, they will be the three main teams, the three top teams. But it will be interesting to see other stuff like Oscar Piastri in the McLaren, for example. If Williams made a car that actually improved the performance finally, they got two good drivers this year. I like Sargent. He had very long runs in the winter testing with him, a lot of laps with no problems. So maybe the year, who knows, to come back a bit on the top. And for the rest, I think Aston Martin looks very like Red Bull last year, so they will be fast. Alpine, not sure. And AlphaTauri, the other brands are a bit more on the mid-championship position, so don't really know what they are putting together and why at the moment. I didn't have the chance to follow more than that.
That's a great roundup of the grid. And I think the thing I like about Formula One is in the race, you're kind of watching a graph. You're watching trend lines. You know, cars can go at a certain pace with a certain degradation. They need to stop, you know, and so on. And you're watching them complete their race time or race distance in a certain time. And then I think zooming out, what's really fascinating now that we have the cost cap and now that we have this kind of wind tunnel regulation, which basically disadvantages the most successful teams and gives them less wind tunnel time. You're seeing, hopefully, another trend line, which is over the season, the cars with the greater amount of development time are hopefully able to close up. So it should be fascinating. And Aston Martin apparently look good. You know, as we're recording, as we're speaking, FP3 is going on, and people, when they're listening to this, will have seen what happened in Bahrain. A question for you: do you have a crystal ball? Because last episode, we were talking about Mattia Binotto. He was not going to be renewed at Ferrari. You talked about sort of the challenges he'd faced, his management style. And really interestingly, there was a conversation about Fred Vasseur taking over, which, you know, given that was, I think, in November or early December when you had that interview, you know, great knowledge. Did you know something, or was it just...
No, it was just for me. It was common sense for me.
Yeah,
for the people that was kind of available for what you know from the press, at least. It was the only one that can actually accept the job.
Yeah,
I won't be in his position, to be honest. It's a tricky position at the moment. You may be the best and solve the situation, or he actually can put his face in something very bad and ruin his career. So you need to have courage to take that position in this moment. So we'll see.
Yeah, no, I agree. And in a way, another really fun thing you said, or interesting thing you said with Dens in the last episode, is that Ferrari is more like a religion than
Yeah,
an organization. And I often think back to Giancarlo Fisichella, who I think he nearly won the Belgian Grand Prix. He would have won if he hadn't been slipstreamed into Les Combes by Raikkonen. And that was in like a Force India many, many years ago. But then he chose to spend the last few races of the season at Ferrari, even though they were
yeah.
having trouble with their car. When Massa had his accident and it meant that he couldn't drive because the spring hit his helmet. So it's almost like you have to accept if you go to Ferrari, it's going to be a big challenge, but that you, a bit like you're talking about your career, it's what you love. It's your dream. So I don't know. Do you think that's probably in the calculation of Vasseur? Like, well, at least I'll be able to say that I've led Ferrari in Formula One.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, why not? It's still one of the most historic team you got. They are records in everything, so it's still a good position to be, even if it's not the Ferrari we knew like 20 years ago. I think it's a bit of a shame the last few years, but I don't know. I mean, for sure is very close to Leclerc, so relationship with the drivers should be okay at least this time. For technical knowledge, he's a good engineer. He just have no experience at the moment how to run a top team because he never did in Formula One. He's quite young into the environment, but it doesn't mean he's not able to. I mean, everybody been young and in a new position for first time. There are people that go ahead and people that stop there in every job. So we'll see.
Well, Fred Vasseur, interesting character. I can't quite remember where he's from. I think he's French, right?
Or Swiss, maybe something like
that. And
Yeah.
the last French-speaking team principal at Ferrari was Jean Todt, right?
Jean Todt, yeah.
So
It was French.
Not to stereotype 60 million people, but who knows?
But
he could have success.
Yeah, I mean, it was a different team, let's say. It's not just about a person, it's a team that makes everything working. But different content, different year, different strategy, different regulation, different cars.
Yeah.
You can't really compare, to be honest. But yeah, if you want to see the same kind of language spoken, yeah, you're there.
You've now completely destroyed me. Yeah, next time I'll be much more fact based. Okay, I'm going to try and bring it back to your engineering language. Right. So this is my segue. Under Jean Todt, of course, you had the lineup of Eddie Irvine and Michael Schumacher, and Eddie Irvine has talked a lot about how much testing they did. Because, of course, they started with that 1996 car with Schumacher that just looked like a bathtub. And they just spent, however many weeks and months testing at the Ferrari test track, Mugello. Now we can't do that. So when I look at Red Bull are the Constructors' Championship. So by default, they have I think it's a 30% reduction in wind tunnel testing time.
Yes.
Everybody is limited to, I think, 5 days of testing throughout the entire year, 3 of which we've already had. Red Bull obviously broke the cost cap in 2021, so they have a further 10% reduction, which I think is 10 times 70%, so another 7% net. Do you think, even if Red Bull start the season with an advantage, that is, 63% reduction or total compared to other teams? Do you think that will play a material impact on their development through the season, and we could see a closer race at the end?
It could. It definitely could if the other team use the time, the extra time they've got well. But remember that aerodynamic-wise, they've got Adrian Newey. So if there is a team that can afford to have less time, I think it's Red Bull. So I'm not super sure that will make a big difference. Maybe it's make a difference. Some people may come closer, but the difference to say, okay, Red Bull is fast now, we want to be in 10 races, I don't think so.
Okay, well, let's see. And George Russell.
Let's speak in 10 races.
Yeah, no, I mean, George Russell's made the point that in the first 6 races are spread over something like 3 months. And then at the end of the season, 3 months covers 11 races. So I'm not just having wishful thinking here for Mercedes, who clearly aren't quite on the pace yet. But there is development time. They did cancel the Chinese Grand Prix. So there is a month where there will not be a factory shutdown because it is season. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a
Fantastic.
good month because if I remember well, it's between when they finish to race in the other part of the world and they come to Europe. So it's actually the first development they put into the car, seriously, if I remember well the calendar.
Yeah, I think so. I think the 6th race is in May, and I think it's in Imola. So
Yeah,
they'll be solidly back into the start of the European season. I can't quite remember where Baku is because the season
yeah.
seems to
I
move
mean,
around now. But
it's fair enough. I was looking at the
yeah,
calendar some times ago. It's just crazy.
there's a
The
lot.
last part of the calendar is just going away and not coming back, basically, till December.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can't remember, to be honest.
So I mean, bringing it back to you a bit, there's a lot of traveling in Formula One, and maybe you wouldn't be able to have that extra day in the hotel after the race.
No, you can't definitely have it.
But is there an aspiration there on your side one day, perhaps, to engineer in Formula One?
Well, it depends. From career perspective, maybe 1, 2, 3 season. Then it's too much, especially with this pace, because still you're young. You can do whatever you want. It doesn't matter if you stay home or not. Okay, you want to stay home, but you want to also develop your career since you're young. When you start to have maybe a child or something, you won't spend much more time at home. So I see Formula One, so something like it may be interesting to do just because they got factory roles. So if you want to have less travel at a certain point, if you've got the experience, and you've got everything done properly for the last 10, 15 years, you may move to a more factory-based role and enjoy a bit more home life. Something that if you are freelancing and do a race engineer, you can't. But
Makes sense.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
just thinking about me in 15 years time, maybe. So I can't be sure because I still love going trackside for the moment. So, we'll see.
You'd have to really love that area of England, that between Oxford, Milton Keynes, and Northampton, where all of the teams happen to be located.
Yeah, almost double. Yeah, it's that.
Yeah, it
I mean,
depends.
the area is nice. I'm living here basically, so
There you are.
Yeah, I'm living in Oxford, so
Perfect.
it's not a bad area. The weather could have been better than this, but it's still better than it was 10 years ago, I think, because we got summer now here, so it's something.
I've got some bad news. If you want weather, I think living in the UK might not be the best option. But
Well,
I know you know
I mean,
that.
the good thing is I'm coming from northern Italy, so the winter is not completely different. So get used to it. If you come from Rome or Sicily, then yeah, you've got a problem for the weather for sure.
Yeah. Well, and for now you're trackside, so and you're working a lot
Yeah.
at night, so who knows.
Yeah, and you can go do Asian series in the winter, so you actually follow the summer.
Yeah. Well,
if you go to Dubai in January, it's 30 degrees. So
that seems like a pitch that if anyone out there would like to, because I know you're not busy enough, Davide, occupy your Decembers in Asia. I'm sure we could find someone.
There's 12 hour golf in December, so maybe. Just saying.
And just a random question, because we're coming to the end of the time, but you're talking about weather and engineering. What is the kind of coldest and hottest conditions that you've had to engineer a race when you're trackside? Is there a big variance?
Yeah. I did a big variance, but just because of COVID. I'll explain better. In 2020, I was doing GT4 Germany, and it was a very compact calendar because they start racing end of August, beginning of September, and they finish in November. So can you imagine Germany, Austria, Zandvoort, that part of Europe? It's very cold in winter, racing in November in Red Bull Ring. I will remember for my whole life, FP1, my driver opened the radio and said like, okay, good, I think it's snowing. And what you answer? It's not something that happened. So you have no answer. So yeah, if it's not slippery, just stay out. That's the thing. But yeah, that was the coldest temperature I've got. It was like -2 trackside, track temperature. And we get 0-1 degree as a air temperature. That was tricky. But for sure, we discovered why motorsport happened during the summer in Europe. That's easy to understand after you do
Yes.
that. And as hot temperature, if you go, I don't know, Sebring in March, or you do Dubai, or you Abu Dhabi in winter, you can get high temperature. The worst I've got was a 55 track temperature in Monza, 2017, Lotus Cup Italy. We had the car stall, the one you put actually the car on if you are in a tent, that would need some steel plate on the bottom, otherwise it won't go into the tarmac for the hot. And that was hard to do, just because tire won't last too much. It was short races, but still having issues with the tires at the end because it was just too hot. And if you imagine Lotus kit, clothing kit, it was all gold and black in the sun,
Oh wow.
humid. I think I changed like 4 t-shirts in 2 hours, something like that. That year, yeah, that was the worst for me. I was Italy.
Gosh, that is a range. So you have a track temperature range of -2 up to 55.
Yeah, it never happened too much. Normally you are around 20, 30, 40 degrees when it's summer. You are in the middle of Europe. But yeah, I did this to peak -2 and 55. Yeah.
Very good. And you know, without going into this for too much longer, I presume you've talked about tires and the fact that perhaps there's a tire warm-up issue in the cold and a tire degradation issue in the hot. But are there other engineering factors that you have to think about? You know, like fuel or downforce, or what does the temperature do to other factors?
They have effect, but depends from the car. Of course, if you have a Formula One car, aero will be affected much more than a GT3. For fuel, the GT3, not really. Yeah, you can have slightly different fuel consumption, but you get more difference on how the driver use the car than the weather. So
okay, that makes sense. Well, look, thank you. That's an impromptu line of questioning, but I really appreciate it. So before we close the episode, and thanks so much for your time, really appreciate it. Anything you want to shout out? Anything you want to point towards? When will we see you next? What race will we see you at?
Yeah, it needs to confirm the GT and World Endurance Championship, Endurance Cup soon. So it will be probably Monza, the first event in April for that. For the rest, I'm just still winter testing. The one important is in 2 weeks' time, 14th of March, British GT Media Day. I'll be there. And then we'll kick up with the season in April. So it will be a round of GT Cup I'm doing, and then will be British GT World Challenge and go for that. But for now, it's testing only.
Well, good luck in Monza. Good luck at the media day. Good luck in testing. And you know, Denz and I might just try and find, you know, where's I'm trying to think where our local. We live near London or in the southeast. We'll try and find the closest possible round and see.
Oh, there are quite a lot. If you live around London, you can come media day. Donington is for free. There is no ticket. Donington is like a couple of hours drive from London. So
yeah. Well, for us Southerners, you know, 2 hours, you could be up in Manchester or something. You know, it could be completely different.
Yeah,
accent.
Exactly.
But yeah,
exactly.
We'll definitely look at that. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. We'll be glad to meet you in person, to be honest. If you come to any British GT round, I'll be there.
Fantastic.
So,
yeah.
Silverstone, there is a certain point. So
cool. Well, we won't distract you in that nice half an hour before the race when we know you're looking for a bit of downtime. I know you're not going to be sleeping because it's a shorter series, but even so, we won't bother you too much. But yeah, good luck. It's really fantastic to have guests that, you know, you can see their growth, you can see their success and trajectory, and you know, it feels like the only way is up for you. So congratulations.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Brilliant. Where can people find you on social media? Have you got some particular handles that
I mean, if you search for my name, I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram with my private profile. So just feel free to follow if you want. Is everything open to public in that sense? And then in terms of motorsport stuff, a Cup of Racing is my company, as you said at the beginning. It's available on Instagram. Just search a Cup of Racing. Facebook as well. Not on Twitter because it was too much. I think about it, but I don't need another social media since I'm doing all one-man band, here. It was too much, so it's just Facebook as a Instagram, and sometimes a bit of LinkedIn, but I'm not really using it.
Well, it sounds like soon you'll have a management company. Who knows? Let's see.
I've got a problem in that because I want to know everything is going on, and then so why pay someone to do something I can do? That's the thing.
No, I know, but maybe a bit like you're racing, particularly your esports side, where you're delegating the detail. Maybe that's what the time will come when you're too important to do your own
maybe
social media. Who knows?
We'll see.
But until then, we will pester you and get you back on the podcast, and it will be great. I don't know if you have a summer break. I assume not, but it will be great to have you back to hear how things are going as we go through the year.
Yeah, maybe during the summer it will be possible. For sure, it's a bit more relaxful than before. So maybe, we'll be happy to do it.
Well, guys, thanks if you stuck with us on the episode. Do give us a like. Do subscribe to us on your podcast platform or on YouTube. Both, why not? Follow us on Twitter. We've just updated our profile page there. We are a podcast that's all about motorsport, but all about getting the stories that are beyond the superficial, hearing from fantastic drivers, brilliant engineers, as we've had today with Davide, media personalities, legends, and up-and-coming talent. So this has been F1 Black, your unusual co-host. The privilege to interview Davide de Russis. Until next time, good night.